Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We've got a ton of BWL talk on this episode, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The BWL starts tomorrow on Saturday. First game, 3:30, 12-13U. Then 14-15U will begin at 5:30, and then at 7:30 we have 16-18U. The Pinstripes are the home team for all three games in Week 1. It's going to be very exciting. The projected starters have been announced for those three games, and we will talk about that later in the show. But first, Bernie, the big blockbuster. A big trade has happened after the draft, and if you're getting it now on BBN, you haven't heard about this yet, I very much would encourage you to go follow the Instagram bearsbaseball.network, because this trade was announced as soon as it happened, I believe like 6 days ago now, so you're way behind if you're just hearing about it right now. Go follow the Instagram and get this stuff instantly when it happens. That is bearsbaseball.network. But let's talk about this trade. It was a 12-man trade, 6 for 6, and it spanned across all three age groups, so let's break it down right now. The Pinstripes received Ian Lancaster, A.J. Siliberto at 18U. They received Jackson Dormeyer and Brody Covetton at 15U, and received Brendan Bass and Jordan Waring at 13U. The Throwbacks received Lucas Levy and Reese Payne at 18U, Sam Dowlins and Jaden Coleman at 15U, and Jacob Mon and Caden Inman at 13U. Bernie. Lot going on here. Big move, obviously. I was involved directly with the trade. KJ, unfortunately, couldn't be on the show. But Bernie, as kind of the... I know you're on KJ's coaching staff, but you're more the neutral party. Give me your thoughts on this deal.
Okay, so I kind of broke it up. A course goes across all three ages. So if you want to start at 12-13U, obviously, Kenny gives two of his guys, and Jordan and Bass. As long as Bass is there a lot, that's a great trade for him. Robbie obviously gets Jacob Mon, who I think one of my favorite players going into the draft. He really good arm and is a really good bat, good defender as well. You go to 14-15U. I think Kennedy probably is the biggest name in Dormeyer. I think he's probably the best hitter out of the guys there. But Robbie, in return, gets Sam Dowlins, who can pitch and is not, like, he's a solid hitter. And he gets, I think, a very important piece to his team in Jaden Coleman. I assume, I've not looked at Robbie's roster, I have it pulled in front of me, but probably a starting shortstop for almost every inning. And then Kennedy also gets Brody Covetton, who I think can eat a lot of innings for that team. And then at 18U, Kennedy gets Lancaster and Siliberto. Lancaster is probably an elite hitter at Ian Lancaster, and I think Siliberto could be a very good pitcher. And then, Robbie gets Reese Payne, who we all know is a great pitcher, and Lucas Levy, who I think was in that wheel pick, one of the best hitters, one of the best pitchers in the draft, by far probably the best player in the deal. So it's hard to say a winner because, of course, three ages, we got to see how it plays out. But I think both teams made a lot of good improvements here.
Yeah, I would say for me, this trade was very much need-based. After the draft, obviously, me and KJ both looked at our rosters, and for me, I saw holes in all three of my teams. At 18U, I had a lot of question marks with the pitching staff. My pitching staff was basically Elliott, and then we'll figure it out. Obviously, I had the 16U guys, but how are they going to play at 18U? And I had some guys who were high upside arms, but I want some reliability, so I go out and get Levy and Payne, who I think are two very solid arms. And I did give up one solid arm in Siliberto, but I thought making the move for two very solid arms really shored up my pitching staff there. I also get a good defensive catcher in Reese Payne. And then at the 15U draft, I had some defensive questions. I didn't really have an obvious first baseman, so I went ahead and get Sam Dowlins, who can play first base, and I did not have a shortstop when Teagan was pitching. Teagan obviously would be the starting shortstop normally, but I did not have a guy who could play short when Teagan was pitching, so I get Jaden Coleman, who, again, even when Teagan's on the field, I could maybe move Teagan around the field to maybe third base and play Jaden at short, because he is that good. And he was a guy I was really targeting during the draft. I would say a top three most disappointing guy I didn't get during the draft was Jaden Coleman. So I was really excited to get him in this trade. And then at 12U, I had holes at third base and a little bit at first base as well, and I get two great defenders. I thought my 13U team, the hitting and pitching was so good, but the defense was a little lacking. So I get a good third baseman in Caden Inman and a great first baseman in Jacob Mon, which was really exciting. And on KJ's side, on the Pinstripe side, I think they get a lot of culture guys. KJ talked a lot in his pregame post conference. In his statement he made before the draft, he talked about he wanted culture. And obviously he gets two key guys for him at 13U, Bass and Waring, who've obviously been on KJ's team for a long time. He gets Dormeyer and Covetton, kind of solidifying that Dalton core he's got on his 14-15U team. Kvetna, obviously a big energy guy. Honestly, Kvetna guy did not want to lose in this trade, but we just couldn't make it work unless Kvetna was in there. So I really wanted to keep him, but unfortunately he goes to that side as well. I think that's going to be a big culture boost. And then he gets Siliberto and Lancaster, both who are big culture guys at 18U as well. So I think this trade worked out for both teams. I know, again, on Instagram, BearsBaseball.network, there was a poll. The Pinstripes lost very, very little. I think it was like 46-54. The Throwbacks won the trade according to the fan vote, but very interesting deal. The first, I think there are going to be a couple trades in the BWL. Another transaction, the Throwbacks picked up Dane Pastrana to replace Evan Little, and Dane Pastrana will be on the roster for at least 14 days, and then a decision will have to be made if he's going to stay or not. So Dane Pastrana is picked up. All right, Bernie, let's move on. Obviously, we had our draft premiere back on Halloween, and this is the first time we've really gotten a chance to analyze this draft because obviously our last week's show was the award show. So let's get into it, Bernie. Obviously we got to hear your thoughts a little bit on that premiere, but let's start at 12-13U and looking at this draft. Just give me your general thoughts on how these teams ended up playing out. Just your general thoughts on this draft.
Thoughts on 12-13U here? Obviously, I think Robbie's team has the Throwbacks have the pitching core that is on that Kenny's at the counter with his big bats here. He's got Velchek, Lancaster, Landon Meyer, Quinn Steinbeck, and those probably the four best pitchers at 13U for that 13U Floyd squad. So that's going to be dominant. And on the other side, a lot of guys. You have Brendan Bass, you got Jordan, you got Jacob Monty, Parker Ells, Aaron Knoll, Nafri. You got a lot of big bats that age. So it's going to be classic. Big arms versus big bats, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it was completely different strategies because I went into the draft wanting to get the big arms early and then try to subset it with some late round bats. And KJ did the exact opposite. He got the big bats early and then subset it with some late round arms. But when you look at KJ's draft, Parker Ells and Logan Meyer is a great place to start for your offense. And then another guy that I really wanted to draft and got taken right away from me was ZZ Garcia. I think with those three, presumably being the 1-2-3 hitters, that is really, really good start for the offense and is going to be a tough way to navigate against. But when you look at the Throwbacks pitching staff, my pitching staff here, Velchek, Lancaster, Steinbeck, might be three of the best four pitchers in the entire draft. And then you add Landon Meyer to that, who's obviously a great arm as well. And it looks like a really, really promising draft. Obviously, they acquired Jacob Mont in the trade as well. This team pitching staff looks really, really strong. I don't know that there will be a lot innings that a great pitcher's not on the mound for the Throwbacks. And it's going to be interesting to see how these pitchers combat against Bears. That's going to be a big talking point all Winter League long is how do these pitchers compare against Bear hitters? Because it's a little bit different, Landon Meyer, one of those guys who's very dependent on his fastball. Is he going to be able to get Bears out with that fastball? That's very going to be questionable there. How's he going to pitch? Quinn Steinbeck, one of those guys who pounds the strike zone. Sometimes when you throw too many strikes against Bears, that can hurt you a little bit. So that's going to be really, really interesting. But looking at this draft, Bernie, give me your steal of the draft. Who did you think was the best value of the entire draft? Who got the steal pick?
In my mind, I think the obvious best value of the draft, this guy fell all the way to the 8th round. I know it was because of maybe some slight attendance concerns, but I think Coach KJ has been assured that he will be there. That's going to be Nafri Kabarkis. I think there's no concerns with Nafri as far as attendance goes. He's probably somewhere in that 4th to 5th round type talent. He's a big arm, throws really hard, has probably one of the most, probably biggest power bat at the 12U age, or one of them at least. He slid all the way back down to the 8th round.
Yeah, you picked a pinstripe. I'm also going to go with a pinstripe. Jaden Highland, in my little mock draft I prepared, Jaden Highland was going way earlier than the 7th round. But when I went so pitching heavy early, it was hard for me to try to justify taking Highland. I considered taking him a little bit earlier, but I just had so much pitching I had to catch up with the bats. But I'll tell you what, man. I said that I thought the Throwbacks had 3 of the best 4 pitchers in the draft. This is the other one. And I think if you're getting a top pitcher, a guy who could be the best pitcher in the draft, getting him in the 7th round was really, really good, I thought, looking at this draft at the end. So for me, Jaden Highland and Nafri Kabarkis, the Pinstripes knocked out of the park with those 7th, 8th round picks. Let's move on to 14-15U. Because, again, a very interesting draft, a draft that the Throwbacks went big arms with the 1-2. Obviously, Teagan's a big bat as well, but go big arms 1-2, and then subsetting some bats in the middle of the draft, although not near as pitching heavy for the Throwbacks in this draft. And then the Pinstripes definitely offense. I mean, the first 4 picks, all bats. I mean, just big bats. So, Bernie, just give me your general thoughts on this draft here.
Yeah, like you said, I think Robbie and Kennedy had the same kind of strategy. You see kind of the coaches, mantra coming out in the draft a little bit. But yeah, Kennedy has a lot of big bats like Willard, Vinny, Taisaz Ueda, Landon Nickerson, Jack Dalton, who I think is only going to miss like a week. But concerns to the pitching staff, Santiago Story, can he be the ace of the team? At least until this other guy gets back, I'm talking about a little bit. Andrew Driscoll, we know he's a guy who pounds his zone with a lot of off-speed. How effective will he be? I think if he can pound his zone with his curveball as much as I think he can, I think he could be one of the top pitchers in the draft. And going later in the draft, I think Kennedy has a high ceiling arm. Braden King, who has we go through the winter, I think could be a very good arm for him. And then Robbie, looking for the bats, can guys like Ivan Saxon, Logan Eckert, Ben Combs with playing with the Big 15U kids, can they all step up? Even like guys like Weston Brody and Niall, like guys who other 14 guys, can they step up and play with the big dogs at 15U?
Yeah, definitely the Throwbacks team is much, much younger at their core. And I think the big thing going into this draft for me was the drop 5 bat. Obviously, I think when you look at 50U guys or 40U guys, it's very easy to say, oh, you want to stack 15U. But that drop 5 bat's going to be a big difference maker. And I wanted to target guys like Ben Combs, who I think could be one of the best 3 hitters in the draft with a drop 5 compared to those drop 3s. I was really excited. And I'll tell you what, Bernie, we're going to do steals here in a second. There were several picks in this draft by both teams that I thought were really good value. But that just goes to show you how much talent's at the age. There were so many good players not getting drafted at 14, 15U. So I think there ended up being a lot of good players late. One guy that I didn't make my official steal, but I was super happy to get in the 10th round was Niall Guzman. I thought he was a top 7-round pick, easy, and I get him all the way in the 10th round, a guy who could be an elite bat and a very good glove, and could be something on the mound as well, a guy who throws hard. I was really happy to get him in the 10th round. But looking at KJ's draft, I actually thought the Pinstripes did a really good job of getting those late round arms. Looking at Driscoll in the 7th, Hall in the 9th, Osbun, who reportedly could be ready to pitch somewhere at the second half of the season in the 10th, and then Braden King in the 11th. I thought was a really good job subsetting those arms because Willard, Dalton, Zezaway to Nickerson is a really scary top 4. Arguably 4 of the best 5 hitters in the draft are those 4. So I think the Pinstripes had a really good draft here. And honestly, before the trade, I thought this team for the Throwbacks had a lot of holes. I think we definitely fixed some of those with getting Sam Dollins and Jaden Coleman. But a really interesting draft. So Bernie, again, a lot of guys that could be steals here. Give me your official steal for this draft.
I'm just going to stay on the topic of the team Pinstripes taking a little bit of a risk, and that would be with Evan Osborne, of course. There's 3 guys on the Dalton team, 3 aces. One went in the first round, one went in the second round, and the other one went in the 10th round. I know it was because we had slight concerns whether when he'd be available to pitch, but by the championship game, he's going to be there. And he could be the best pitcher in this draft. He's right in the mix of the top 3 pitchers. So, yeah, get him all the way down to the 10th round.
Yeah, if he was ready to pitch week 1, he would have been, I think, a 3rd-round pick. So definitely getting great value here in the 10th round. But it was question mark. It was not confirmed that he'd be ready to pitch at any point this offseason when the draft took place. So obviously the news coming after the draft that he could be ready some point in the middle of the season is great news for the Pinstripes. I thought it was a great pick for them. I'm going to go with the guy that the Pinstripes took right after him in Braden King. Another one, I feel like I'm going to say this on all the steals that I pick. Another guy that I really wanted to get on the Throwbacks. Honestly, there's 2 reasons that Braden King is not a throwback. Number 1, I had a lot of, I took the big 2 picks, my first 2 picks. I was trying to subset bats. Number 2, I wasn't confident KJ knew who Braden King was. So I was hoping I could get him very late. I was hoping I could get him with my 12th or 13th round pick because I didn't know if KJ knew who he was. Braden King, very new to the Bears. I was hoping maybe I could sneak him in there late. But unfortunately, KJ was on top of it and got Braden King, a guy that I think could be a big impact arm. And even if he doesn't live up to these high expectations, he's an 11th round pick. He doesn't necessarily have to live up to huge expectations, but I think the sky's the limit for that guy. A really, really good pick by the Pinstripes in the 11th round, I thought. Moving on to the 16-18U draft. This one, I think, very straightforward. Obviously the talent pool is a little bit smaller because the age is a little bit smaller. But looking at this draft, I still thought there were a lot of good value picks. Bernie, give me your general thoughts on this draft.
For the Throwbacks, they got their guys now with Elliott and the trade acquisitions behind them for the mound. And with the bats, they got guys like Vince Dalton, guys like Willard, Guys are playing up at 18U, where if they can perform anywhere close to where they are at the younger ages, that team will be in really good shape. For the Pinstripes here, and they got a lot of good hitters here, a lot of good arms as well. Brady Heck, Andrew Smith, two guys who, guys that aren't as much as well known as your Levy's or your Floyd or your Myers, but toward the end of the season especially, were very good on the mound, and that if those two guys can perform with guys like Mac, and if those two guys pitchers can perform, this Pinstripe team is going to be in very good shape as well.
Yeah, the Pinstripes, I thought, had a really good draft here. But for the throwbacks, I think one of the more controversial picks of all three drafts was Tegan Kryler going in the 4th round of the 18U draft. And I want to talk to my thought process there. I have the wheel pick, and I pick Ian Lancaster. I thought the top 6 in this draft was very obvious. I thought there were 6 guys who obviously go in the top 3 rounds. And then I thought the 4th round pick for me was a wild card pick. I could go any direction. I thought the debate was between taking Tegan Kryler. I debated taking Alex Hobson here, and then I could have taken a catcher between Payne, Bober, and Acker. But I felt like with 3 catchers being available, I figured it would be smart to wait for one. So even though I thought maybe the best pick could have been taking one of those 3 catchers, I decided to go with Kryler, who I think could be an elite bat as well. And then obviously I needed a sure thing at shortstop as well. And I thought that was a good pick for me because then I ended up getting Chase Acker to be one of my catchers later. And then obviously I trade for Reese Payne. So I thought that worked out really well for me. And then I said I was debating taking Hobson in round 4. I ended up getting him in round 6. I was really, really happy with that pick. Another guy who I debated making my steal of the draft, I was really happy to get Hobson with the 6th round pick because I debated taking him in the 4th round. So I thought that was a great pick. A two-way player who I think would be a really good hitter in this league, and obviously his defense was really good toward the end of the fall. So I was really happy with that pick as well. But Bernie, looking at all these picks, a lot of interesting picks, especially in the late rounds. Give me your steal of the draft.
Still a draft, I'm going to stick with the Pinstripes. This is all the way down to the 12th round. This guy was a top 5 high school MVP candidate this season. Fell all the way down to 12. Now it'd be Caleb Calmezi from 16U. I'm going to assume he fell because, slide and attendance concerns probably. And then he's not going to give you any boost defensively compared to what you have. And he's not going to give you any aims on the mound. He's there to hit. But I think CC is possibly... I think he's a 7th, 8th round talent just with his bat, at least, if not even higher. So I think get him down to 12. He's a big bat because, remember, not everyone who plays field has to be in the lineup. So he's in the lineup every game. I think he'll bat somewhere in the middle of the order, and he could be a big bat for that squad.
Yeah, CC, a guy definitely on my draft board. A guy that I thought was a really good pick in the 12th round for the Pinstripes, so I 100% agree with everything you said, Bernie. Some guys that I really thought were great values. Brady Heck, I thought was a great value in the 7th round. Definitely a guy I consider taking. And Andrew Engelken, I thought was a great value in the 10th round, a guy who could be a really big bat. But for my official steal, I'm going to go in the 12th round and take Fred Smith. Looking at the 16U guys in this draft, I thought Fred Smith went way too late. I debated taking him in the 8th and 9th round. So to get him all the way in the 12th, I thought was a really, really great value because this is a guy who can really do it all. He's going to get on base, going to hit for great contact, can play the infield. I can put him at second base and feel really good about it. I could probably get away with playing him at short, sparingly as well. I thought it was a really good pick for a team that was looking to subset some offense late in the draft. I thought getting a guy like Fred Smith, who is an all-around hitter, one of the best, top 3 hitters, I think for sure, for that 16U Burnsville squad, I thought was a great, great value to get Fred Smith with that pick. I was really, really happy with that one. So I think it's going to be really fun to see how the 18U league plays out. One thing, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but I'll mention it now. The rule for the championship game. So the way it's going to work is there are 10 regular season games for every win that a team gets over 5. Okay, so if you have 6 wins, that's obviously 1 over 5. You get a run in the championship game. So if the Pinstripes go 7-3 in the regular season, they start the championship game up 2-0. So that's going to be the real incentive to really play well in the regular season. I know there were talks amongst players of, what's the point of the regular season? Well, here it is. You're going to be down in the championship if you don't really put up a good effort in the regular season. Especially, if you go 9-1, starting the championship game down 4-0 with these big arms, really not going to be a good spot for you. So wanted to throw that out there here. Okay, Bernie, the last thing we're going to do today is let's take a look at the projected starters for this Saturday. Starting at 12-13U, the Throwbacks going with one of their two aces in Evan Lancaster, and the Pinstripes, who, again, you look at their roster, was not necessarily a clear ace. They go with Parker Ells, their first-round pick. I thought was a very interesting choice. But give me your thoughts on this pitching matchup.
I mean, I love Parker to death, man, but he's not Evan Lancaster on the mound. Evan Lancaster's arguably, I think, him and Veli are 1 and 2 in this draft, 1A, 1B as far as pitching goes. And Parker, I don't think anyone really thought of him as a big arm, but he's getting the opening day's job, and we'll see what he does.
And I will say Parker's last start of the fall of the tournament season was really, really impressive. And I think he's definitely got all the stuff. And he's another one of those guys I think could play even better against Bears because he's one of those pitchers who guys don't want to swing against in tournament baseball. And he'll miss 2 inches outside and guys just aren't swinging. Bears are going to swing and they're going to be aggressive. So I think Parker might get some extra swings on those pitches that maybe are getting taken in tournament games. And I think the walks will come down. I think it's a very interesting spot for the Pinstripes because, again, the pitching limit is 3 innings. Guys can only go 3 innings at maximum. So if you get out of the 3rd inning here, tied or even in the lead, the Pinstripes are in a fantastic spot coming out of that with the Throwbacks going with their ace. And I'll tell you what, Bernie, it's kind of a common theme with the Throwbacks going with their ace because at 14-15U, Throwbacks, Tegan Kryler going to get the ball opening day on Santiago Story getting the ball for the Pinstripes. Another very interesting pitching matchup. Give me your thoughts, Bern.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, with the Throwback squad, I think especially with Elijah Underwood on the IL, Tegan's by far, or not I won't say by far, but I think he's the clear ace of the whole league in general. And then someone like Santi, again, he's a good pitcher. He was a very good arm for Dalton all season long. But can he match Tegan through 3 innings? That's the real question here. And again, it's kind of evened out because the Throwbacks team has the better arms, I think, while the Pinstripes have to do with the big bats. So Tegan does have to face, I think, better bats in my opinion. And Santi gets to face maybe a little bit of a weaker lineup compared to that Pinstripes team. But, yeah, we'll see how Santi does here.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Pinstripes can play defense behind Santiago because I don't know if he's going to get a whole lot of strikeouts against these very good Bear bats, but when he's able to pound the corners like he's really, really good at, and the Bears being very aggressive in general, I think he can get some ground balls. And if the defense can play well behind him, I think it could be a really good spot where the Pinstripes, again, if they can go through 3 innings, tied or in the lead, that puts them in a great spot because obviously they get through the Throwbacks ace in that draft. And let's move on to 18U. Elliot Myers against Brady Heck is the starting matchup. And again, Throwbacks going with their ace, the Pinstripes going with a very interesting arm, and Brady Heck. Give me your thoughts on that pitching matchup.
Yeah. Throwbacks again. Elliot Myers. Arguably, I think him and Mack are 1 and 2 in the draft, basically, as far as arms go. With Brady Heck, though, I think it's very interesting how it's going to play out in the game because Brady Heck's a good arm. He's not going to get lit up, I don't think, necessarily. But at what point do you go to Mack in that draft? Because I think Mack is obviously the ace of the squad here. So say you come out of the first innings down 1-0. Is the next pitcher going to be Mack? Or if the Throwbacks are able to get a lead, are going to be able to get into the maybe the lesser arms of the Pinstripes teams that they can take advantage of? So I think the question is, are we going to see Mack flow on day one? If the Pinstripes are down, or I don't know, you can get a lead, then Max just shut it down.
Yeah, it puts KJ in a very interesting position in all 3 drafts. You look at his Pinstripes team at the 14-15U. He doesn't necessarily have a clear ace, so I guess you could say Santiago is his ace at that age, but he's got a lot of interesting arms in the middle of that team as well. It's going to be interesting to see how he uses his bullpen because I think it's going to be very situational for the Pinstripes. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes ahead and does with his pitching rotation. Throwbacks. What do you think of the strategy, Bernie, of the Throwbacks? Obviously, my team going with their aces to start each game. Obviously, with pitchers only being able to throw 3 innings, are the first 3 innings that important, in the grand scheme of things? So, what do you think of the strategy for me to go ahead and throw my ace in the first 3 innings of each game?
I will say, I think with almost every roster you have on that Throwback squad, like, for example, you have Evan Lancaster and you have Lucas Velchek. I mean, the margin of difference is not that much between those 2 guys at least. So, I mean, you want to get off to a good start. The first 3 innings, I think, are very important to this whole season in general. You want to start up, and stay ahead there. So, I mean, I like the decision here to go with the top arms.
Yeah, I felt like, I drafted big pitchers. I'm going to use those big pitchers. I'm going to try to win these games, 4-1, and try to beat the Pinstripes by shutting them down. So, wanted to get ahead early in these games, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. All right, Bernie, to end the show, Obviously, I'm not going to make a prediction because the Throwbacks are my team. I know you're on the Pinstripes coaching staff, but you're more of a neutral party. Give me your predictions for the 3 games on Saturday. Again, 3:30, 12U, 13U, 5:30, 14, 15U, and 7:30, 18, 16, 18U with the Pinstripes as the home team in all 3 games. Give me your thoughts, Bernie. Give me a prediction for all 3 series.
Okay, you want to do just a winner or a score?
Winner.
You want
give me
both?
a winner. Well, you can give a score if you want.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Give me a winner and a score for all 3 series, for all 3 games.
All right, we'll start down at 12-13U. I think that this game is going to be low scoring. I think we're going to see both Evan Lancaster and Lucas Velchek. And then I think Parker has a good outing. There's a lot of good bullpen arms here. So I'll say 8-inning game, right? 8-inning game here. I'll say we'll see something along the lines of like 7-4. And I will go with, I don't know. Say like 5-3. I'll go with the Throwbacks in that game at the 12-13U age. For 14-15U, we're seeing Crowder versus Story. I think those will be two very good arms as well. I think I think this first week we're going to see a lot of low scoring games because of the arms that are being rolled out here in week 1. You're going to see a lot of the top arms. I will give the edge to the Pinstripes here in this game, and I will say we're along the lines of something. I think if they're going to win, they're going to score a little bit more runs. Something along the lines of like 6-4 here.
All right, and then how about 18U, Bernie?
With 18U, okay. Again, there's 2 thought processes here. One, that is Ellie comes out here and shoves, or that they get a couple runs off him. I will go ahead and I will say that Brady Heck holds it down, and then Matt comes in behind him and shuts it down. So, again, I'm going to go with a little bit lower scoring here. I'm going to say we're going to see something along the lines of, I'll say we'll see a 6-2 game in favor of the Pinstripes.
All right, so Bernie, picking the Pinstripes to win 2 out of 3, 12-13U being the exception. But yeah, to go along with what you said, Bernie, with the big arms, it's been a couple weeks since guys have seen live arms. So, maybe that bat's come out a little bit slower. I think it's going to be really interesting, Bernie. I tend to agree with you. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring, but I think it's going to be close games all around. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Once again, be sure to follow the Instagram. You can get all of these things right as they happen. We're telling you the starting pitchers right now. You could have gotten them 2 days ago if you were following our Instagram, so make sure to go do that. It is bearsbaseball.network. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff on there. I'm sure that there's going to be a poll to you pick who's going to win each series. Bernie made his predictions, and there's going to be player interviews. There's going to be a lot of posts on there, so be sure if you want to stay up to BWL news and just BBN news in general, make sure to follow the Instagram. That's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, though. Super exciting for the BWL to start tomorrow. Be sure to go out and check it out, and we will talk to y'all next week.